Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I'm here with Bradford Ferguson of Halter Ferguson Financial, our everybody's favorite Tesla expert in Indiana. Bradford, my understanding is you visited the mega factory in Lathrop, California, and you saw a lot more. What can you tell us about that?
What I was really surprised about is the number of buildings that Tesla has in Lathrop, California. There are, let's see, 6 buildings of interest, and one of them is a part supplier. So I want to share that story with folks so you get a sense of the scale that Tesla's operating at in Lathrop, California. And we should also, before we finish, we should also talk about why Lathrop, California is a pretty ideal location.
Okay, and just for starters, the reason we're talking about Lathrop, the thing that attracted your interest is the mega factory. Tesla is building its new generation Megapacks, Megapack 2XL or XL2 or whatever, at the Lathrop location, but it turned out there was more there than you thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's dive in. What did you find?
All right. So I think many people have already seen, I'm going to share my screen. People have already seen the Megapack factory, and they have these Megapacks sitting in a parking lot, and they'll ship them out by a flatbed truck that can handle the weight. These things weigh 82,000 pounds. So you need a flatbed. I think they do 7-axle flatbed.
Yeah, just so people know, normally the limit on a tractor trailer, on a semi towing a load, is the entire weight of the semi and the trailer and everything has to be under 80,000 pounds. So in order to carry an 82,000 pound Megapack, they need a special permit. I don't know if it's wide load or there's some special permitting to carry heavier loads on the road. So I think that was related to your point.
This is where they come out at the end, and they head out this gate by truck. So I checked out the factory, and I watched for a while, to say the least, to see how many they were making on average per day. This building's 870,000 square feet, so it's under 1 million. And a part of it, I think, is offices right here. And this next building we're seeing is on the map. You'll see it's called Simwan America. And maybe I'll pull up Google Maps after I go through this video. In Simwan America, I found out by looking at Glassdoor reviews, is making they're making body parts for Tesla. And there's another 2 factories that Tesla has right here. This is believed to be making power walls or possibly battery packs. And this has been in place for a long time. This building over here is believed to be making drive units.
Did you look at Tesla careers to see if they hire a lot in Lathrop and what they hire for?
I'm about to do that. So the casting allegedly is right here, and that's been going on for a long time, a much longer time than we think. So the community found those casting jobs recently, but allegedly it's been going on for maybe 6 years or so. Yeah, I think it'd be good to look at like a power wall or drive unit or drivetrain. Be looking at other jobs there. And I'm going to skip ahead. There's this other enormous building, and I think it may be the biggest building, where it's a holding area for parts. It's a warehouse, and this is where they send out parts. I'm guessing they're sending it out throughout the United States, but they also send a lot of parts to Fremont, California. So this may be a bit of a buffer between the factories they have in Lathrop and sending them to Fremont. Does that make sense, Warren?
Yeah, I think people may not understand, when you're producing vehicles on the scale or any complex manufactured objects on the scale that Tesla's producing, you have components that need, raw materials and components, that need to go into your vehicles. And then you have to, once you have produced a product, whether it's a vehicle or a power wall or a Megapack, whatever, then you have to distribute that. There's all this logistics that go into running a business. And we tend to miss that detail when we think about Tesla. We think about the gigafactories, but there's a lot more than gigafactories.
Yeah. You just reminded me by saying the word logistics. Tesla has rented this parking lot. They may have this building too. It's unsure, but they have a bunch of car carriers here. Tesla runs their own freight fleet. And Elon talked about this in the past where they had to create their own trucking fleet. And sometimes they store car carriers and like Model 3s here from Fremont. It could be a staging area to other parts of California as well.
Yeah, when I visited Giga Texas as well, there's a lot of land around Giga Texas, and they've got, trailers, tractor trailer trailers in one area, and they've got other parts, and like all around the factory, there's stuff that's staged to go in the factory, to come out of the factory, all kinds of things going on. It's a fascinating logistics challenge managing it. And think about this: Tesla's producing maybe 2 million vehicles this year. Toyota and Volkswagen each produce 10 million vehicles a year. So their logistics had to be even bigger mess.
Yeah. I wouldn't want that job. So again, we're looking here at Simwan America, and we're looking south to these two buildings believed to be factories.
Is Simwan America Tesla owned, or is that a vendor supplier to Tesla?
It's a Korean company. So they are a supplier to Tesla.
Okay.
I don't know if they're making body parts. I don't know what they're making. I don't know if they're using casting machines there. I think we're about to see, hopefully, the right side here. This building right here on the right side, they have the air gases here. I'm not an industrial person. I don't know if this is a smelter, but it had this funnel look to it from the sides. So it could be a sorter or crusher. This is where they're definitely making castings. And I saw some castings outside the building, a new type of casting we haven't seen. And it looked like it may be a two-part casting. So maybe it could be an old one from like the Model Y when they had the back, rear, underbody in two parts before they could put it all into one piece.
Well, Model S and Model X use smaller castings. They don't do like large single piece castings like Model Y, but and I think Model 3 may also use smaller castings.
Yeah, so we're talking about a level of vertical integration where Tesla's making a lot of their own parts. But I think until we actually see it, do we really appreciate it? We think, oh, well, they just make their drive units and somehow they magically appear. Yeah, sorry, it's a little jerky. These are these things they use to transport the parts as well. Around here is where I saw the castings, these smaller castings. And it's believed they make some Model S and X parts here. And they also have offices where they handle the logistics, service, and parts distribution across the US, I believe. So there's some chargers for visiting Tesla VIP execs. So if Elon ever comes, he charges here. So I was, I came for Lathrop, and I knew about this building already, but I didn't know what all else Tesla had going on, and I was really shocked by it.
So was there a biggest takeaway? I mean, you showed a bunch of, like for me, I saw a bunch of Megapacks in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're doing a high volume of Megapack production, obviously, is like one of the goals, and they're probably just getting started. But maybe you were more surprised by all the other things that were going on around it.
Yeah, personally, I was. I was fairly impressed by the level of Megapack activity. I'm not going to give an exact number, but if you think about what Dylan Loomis shared, he was talking about 12 megapacks a day, starting around February, and we don't know when Tesla is going to be able to recognize that on her financials, because just because they make it and get it on a truck and get it to a site doesn't mean they get to contractually recognize that financially. So yeah, I was fairly impressed by the activity. I've shared some tweets on Twitter where for whatever reason, sometimes they like to travel together. So you'll have like 3 or 4 megapacks all leave at once, but that doesn't mean they're like, suddenly making 24 a day. It just means they like to travel together for to help each other out, keep each other company, and they travel during the day too.
Yeah,
We've seen some leave at night, but most of the shipping happens during the day.
right. So 12 megapacks a day at 400 days would be 4,800 megapacks a year. Is that right?
Yeah, and then you shave a little bit off of that. Yeah, 40.
Well, no, you don't shave a little bit off of that because they're ramping.
Oh,
We
yeah.
call it 5,000 megapacks a year. We expect that number to grow. There may be some pauses, but we expect that number to grow. And a megapack is $4 million. So that's $2 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're there yet. And that's, by the way, that's the Lathrop Megapack factory. They're actually producing the older generation Megapacks in Nevada, as far as we know, although that's a smaller volume.
Right.
But it might not be crazy to see Tesla hit $2 billion in revenue on energy storage this year. I tend to get over optimistic about these things and then get set back later.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder about that, but just want to look and see.
Personally, I don't know, when the big uptick will be. I suspect it could be Q2 or Q3, as far as just, recognizing this new level they may be doing.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen one more time.
Go ahead.
I'm going to show the Google Maps.
Yeah.
And Google Maps isn't always true, but it kind of corroborates some of it. So here you see the Tesla Megapack factory, Simon, America. So we were kind of flying down the street looking this way. And then there's the 2 factories here. And then the last building we showed there. And then in between, what we showed is what is labeled on the map, Tesla Service Distribution Center.
Right. It's entirely possible that some of the other buildings around there are also doing work for Tesla. We don't know that, right?
Right. Yeah, these are just the ones we know about.
I mean, Swift Transportation is just a trucking company. I see that. I see the one at the bottom of your screen. I think they actually do trucking for Walmart as their main thing, but I could be wrong about that.
They do help Tesla. I've seen some of their trailers go in there and some of the cabs.
I think we can rule out Ashley Furniture Warehouse doing work for Tesla. You never know, but that seems unlikely.
Yeah. So all this research I did from public roads, it has, 2-way traffic. It's not like some dead end road that goes to a factory. So I wasn't disturbing anyone. And if you zoom out here, the context that I learned was you have this area called Tracy, and it used to be when people would want to live and would want to work around Fremont and some other areas, maybe San Francisco, and they couldn't afford to live there, they would live out in Tracy. But what's happened and this was maybe 20 years ago, I could be wrong, but what's happened over the years is Tracy's gotten more expensive. People have gotten pushed out. So you have all this growth that's happened in Modesto, Lathrop, Stockton, California. So Lathrop is actually a good center for labor, but it's probably very competitive because there's a lot of logistics that are happening beyond just Tesla. And if we look at the port of Stockton,
yeah,
gonna zoom us way in. It's on the river. It's got all this rail. There's a highway heading to it, so the Megapacks can get on the highway and come here. But sometimes they'll just go directly to the site. But you could get on rail here. They have riverboat barges. And I believe these are connected to the ports here. I believe there's a port around Benicia. Then you have the port of Oakland, that's pretty big. So you have a connection by water that can be pretty cost effective to ship by barge.
So you're sort of picturing maybe the Megapacks are transported from Lathrop to the port of Stockton.
Yep.
And then they're put on a train or put on a boat from there.
Yep.
Rather than, because it doesn't make sense to drive them across the country until you have electric semi transporting them.
Yeah. Well, they may be sending them direct to LA. I don't know. I did find this other location here. It's near it's near a dumping ground. So there's this area called the Fink Road landfill, and there's this project called the Proxima battery energy storage system. So if you search for Proxima BESS, it's actually a project that's being run by NextEra Energy, and that is owned by I believe Berkshire Hathaway. Right now it's not showing, but that was I think it's 150 megawatts of power. So that's the level of power coming from the storage. So that's at least 75 megapacks, if not 150 of them.
Right. So people don't know there's two versions of Megapack XL2, one that outputs 2 megawatts and one that outputs 4 megawatts.
Okay.
Yeah. So
maybe it's 37 to 75. People from the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley spotted them there. There's a huge solar project going up where all the staking has been done to put them on racks and all that. That San Joaquin Valley Owners Club has been very generous, helping me out, getting me the drone stuff and helping me learn the lay of the land in Lathrop.
He's got like a 2014 or 15 Model S, right?
Yeah,
Joe
2% of SJV Tesla on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. I met him at the Plaid event. All right. So do you have any major takeaways from all this? Is it what you were motivated about this? You're obviously excited about Megapack production. I think, the sense is that we know there's 129,000 employees in Tesla.
Yeah.
Worldwide. And they're not all working in 4 buildings.
Right.
They're all over. There's Giga Texas, Giga Berlin, Giga Shanghai, and Fremont, but there's a whole lot more going on. Buffalo and Lathrop, and I think there's probably a lot more we don't realize.
Yeah, there's that mystery.
Palo Alto.
That 1 million square foot building near Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
That may just be a distribution center. Who knows?
Yeah. I think that could be the next mega factory, but
yeah,
we get focused on these large factories, and we have to recognize that there's a lot of other stuff that goes on that requires additional buildings and so on. When you're going to grow from, they delivered 500,000 vehicles or close to 500,000 vehicles in 2020. We're going for 2 million in 2023. That's a 4X.
Yeah.
You need a lot of support for all that. I think that the vision was probably you want to try to get as much done inside your main factory as possible, because then you have to move things shorter distances, but sometimes that's just not a practical reality.
Yeah.
I didn't think, we had this investor day presentation, and there were these 2 guys that were presenting about supply chain. They weren't really presenting about logistics. Like, we've never heard from Tesla, like, how's their logistics, how are they innovating on logistics? And you would expect they would be.
Mm-hmm.
You would expect there's some, vision within Tesla that we need. Because, I've seen Elon talk before about you want to move molecules as short a distance as possible.
Yeah.
So you would expect that they're taking a first principles approach to how can we run our logistics better and how can we make this more efficient. We've never seen that presentation at an event, as far as I know.
Yeah. Scott Walter, he had a fascinating insight in that, let's say you're making the batteries, but you're the car maker, but someone else is making the batteries, they're putting it in a box. So when the module maker wants to make the modules, and I think it's normally the automaker that does that, they have to unbox it. So there's like all these robots to unbox it and to get rid of all the materials and to sort it. And then they have to retest them because the batteries were in transit for 20 days or whatever. You got to retest it. Really slows things down. And you have all this footprint for unboxing and testing, where what Tesla is doing with their batteries and their modules is with 4680, you make the 4680 in one spot, and you test it, and you put it in the module, and then you test the module as a whole.
Right. There's
advantages like that. I was just super impressed by the scale Tesla has. Impressed with what they're doing at Lathrop with, I don't think they have 1,500 workers at Lathrop yet. So they seem to be doing well with a somewhat restrained number of workers.
Yeah, just for context, if they have 1,300 workers, that's 1% of Tesla's total workforce globally. Yeah. That huge complex that you just showed with, 5 or 6 buildings of Tesla work employs about 1% of Tesla's total employment. So that gives you a sense of the scale of how big Tesla is you got these ridiculously large buildings, and that's only 1% of it.
Yeah.
And it's growing.
Another insight was on the Megapack. Each of those Megapacks, when it's sold to a large project, sells for about $2 million. And with these Megapack 2 XLs, the margins may be as high as 50%.
Right.
So each of those trucks going by, I was thinking, okay, that's worth $2 million, but that's worth $1 million in profit. If they're doing, let's say, 10 a day, that's average quarter is 90 days. That's $900 million per quarter at a 10 a day rate.
Wait, did I say so? 5,000 Megapacks times $2 million would be
you rounded up. You rounded up from 12 or whatever.
But that would be $10 billion in revenue, which if I had their energy revenue up on my screen, their energy revenue for Q4 was 1.1 billion. So they're on a rate for let's say 5 billion a year in revenue from that, but that's all of energy and storage.
Right.
So
Lathrop by itself, let's go with your 12 and you're rounding up to number of days or whatever.
Yeah.
That could do, if you think about it, 10 billion a year. That could be 5. That's right.
Well, no, because 40 gigawatt hours is the target, right?
Right.
With 4 megawatt hours per Megapacks, roughly. So that's 10,000 Megapacks.
Right.
Right. So we're only talking about, we're saying optimistically they might deliver 5,000 this year, and that would be 10 billion in revenue. But long term, it's doubled that, and it's 20 billion a year in revenue. And just for context, in 2022, Tesla's total revenue was 80 billion.
Right.
Right. So it's not, I think people get carried away with Megapacks. Megapack is going to be a big and I expect revenue for 2023 to be closer to 120 billion. And we're not going to get to that. So that's 10 billion out of 120 billion is still less than 10% of revenue. Right. So the 4 or 5 billion in revenue in 2022 from energy and storage was 5% of Tesla's revenue. We do expect energy to grow faster. Megapack is a big jump. It's like a step change in their ability to produce energy storage. So it would be reasonable to see that push them to 10% of revenue by maybe next year. I don't know if this year it's possible.
Yeah, but
Like, you know,
if you think about the profits, I was trying to get it to a quarterly profit thing. Um, let's go with your numbers, and so 10 billion in revenue.
oh, sorry, I had my numbers wrong. It was 1.7, it was 1.3 billion in revenue for Q4. It's still about 5 billion a year. But there, you know, the profit story, you just have to cut you off on this because people say this about Tesla profit on Megapack. And the quarterly numbers were 1.3 billion in revenue from energy generation and storage and 1.15 billion in costs. So, you know, the profit margin is, you know, 10% maybe. I think as they scale, the potential gross margin is really high. But the current gross margins with all of energy generation storage is just not there yet.
Are you open to being wrong and being less wrong?
Well, yeah, no. I'm just saying, look at Q4, look at energy generation and storage.
Well,
You got 1.3 billion in revenue, 1.15 billion in costs. That's, you know,
yeah.
150 million out of 1.3. You know, it's a little more than 10% gross margin.
Let me give you some context. So the Megapacks coming out of Nevada, we think they cost Tesla about $300 per kilowatt hour. And when those deals were made, most of the deals were made around $300 per kilowatt hour. What changed, the reason why Tesla made those deals at that price is the price of lithium went up quite a bit. So it used to be the cost was lower, but because the price of lithium went up a bit, that's why you're not seeing profits from that in Q4. And Lathrop was just scaling. Like maybe they were at 2 or 3 a day in Q4. So like they weren't over any kind of hump to be profitable from that site. Yes, you know, solar doesn't seem to be giving a lot of profits, but the way the Megapack contracts are designed is Tesla is protected from fluctuations in the lithium price, and the contracted price is like $500 or more per kilowatt hour.
Can I just make one point for people to understand?
Actually, it's a little below.
Okay. I just want to make one point for people to understand is the battery is maybe 1/5 of the cost or less of a Model Y, let's say, and probably, you know, closer to 1/10 of the cost of a Model S or Model X.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, maybe a little more than that, maybe 15%. You know, it's like 20% at most of a Model Y and 15% maybe of Model S or X. But the battery is like probably more than half the cost of a Megapack. It might be 3/4 of the cost of Megapack is the battery. So the impact that lithium has on the cost of a car is much less than the impact that the cost of lithium has on the cost of a Megapack, because Megapack is basically just one big battery. There's no drivetrain.
Right.
You know, there's no windshield wipers. There's no wheels and tires. It's basically one big battery with some electronics to support the battery. The cars have the battery and electronics to support the battery too, but the cars have a whole bunch of other stuff going on. They have glass, they have seats.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like a giant server rack where you have these, in server racks, you got these computers and you have plumbing so you can liquid cool the electronics, and you have wires hooked up to them. And Megapack's very similar, where they have it set in racks where they could just put each battery pack into a rack. They have plumbing, they have electrical, and it's a big box, and they can ship it, you know, through a truck. It is, yeah, it's much more simple. They do have inverters, so there's a lot of inverter that goes into it. But yeah, it's mostly battery is the cost there.
yeah. So your take is, because I've been pushing back on people saying Megapack profits are huge. It makes sense to me that Megapack profits will be high margin in the long run, but I don't think they're there yet, because they have to ramp and they have to amortize the factory over the number of units that are produced. And when they reach their full ramp, then the cost of amortizing the factory, the capital expenditure over each unit gets reduced. And, you know, so I think early on, they're not generating that much from an accounting perspective. They're not generating that much profit. from Megapacks. But as they ramp and scale production and they get more efficient in their production, we may see 50% or greater gross margin, I think is your take, right?
On that additional incremental Megapack. So I don't think like Tesla Energy will, be close to that because they have solar and they have the older Megapack that's going on. But Matt Smith has looked at it. He's worked with me on Tesla, and we think margins could be 40% or higher. So we're pretty optimistic, and we feel that Tesla's getting maybe 500 to $450 per kilowatt hour with the Megapacks, and their cost is $250 or lower with these larger Megapacks.
Now, the other thing is, I think the latest Megapack is using lithium iron phosphate cells, which are not eligible for the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits. So one of my theories about the Houston building that they're talking about, the 1 million square feet Houston building in Houston, is at some point Tesla probably wants to start making lithium iron phosphate batteries in the United States, and maybe their own tweak of lithium iron phosphate with manganese or some other element doping it to get a little bit better performance. Once they start getting tax credits on that, then their cost of producing Megapack effectively goes down. It might show up in a different part of their accounting.
Yeah.
But if they're getting $35 a kilowatt hour tax credit plus $10 a kilowatt hour for the modules, and they use LFP and it costs them $70 a kilowatt hour to produce LFP, lithium iron phosphate batteries, LiFePO4 for those who want to get picky. Then their cost of producing Megapack goes down dramatically, since most of the cost of Megapack is the batteries.
Right.
And there's no ceiling on how much tax credit they can get, right?
Yeah, but at a certain point, the government might say, "Oh, this is way beyond our projections." Yeah, that's possible.
Sure.
There are some tax credits in the Inflation Reduction Act that help the purchaser. So like the utility, they can get 30% to 70% off, depending on where they put it, that kind of thing. So it does allow Tesla to command a higher price on these Megapacks. So there is some benefit, and it doesn't like they still get that 30 to 70% off, even if it's a Chinese made battery or whatever.
Anything else on your mind?
Well, since you brought up LFP, Model 3 standard range might lose the tax credit. So I'm kind of curious what will happen there. I'm guessing like the standard range is going to be 5,000 less than the performance possibly for Model 3. So I think maybe Tesla will reduce the price a little bit to make up a little of the difference. I'm curious to see,
Well, don't you think they'll just stop making LFP Model 3s? And at least, sorry, don't you think they'll stop selling LFP Model 3s in the US and just shift to 2170s?
If they're getting enough 2170s, LG has certainly been pumping them out in bigger quantity for sure.
I mean, as long as they're being produced in the United States, so you're getting the tax credit from them, or I don't think they have to be. Do they have to be produced in the United States if they're? I don't know how that's going to work, but I just think that. I mean, that's all like tax strategy, and I think Tesla's more long-term focused and worried about short-term things like that. But still, if you can boost your profits a bit, and it gives you more money to be able to do more expansion later.
The other piece is on profits. So you kind of stopped me on it. But if you think about, let's say they're doing 10 a quarter, and there's 90 days in a quarter, they're essentially and let's say they're at 50% margin, you can adjust it how you want. So when you multiply that together, it's 900 million a quarter in profit. And Tesla has about 3.2 billion shares or something like that. So that's around maybe 30 cents a share in profits per quarter. Once these 10 a day start hitting Tesla's financials.
Yeah.
Last year they made about $1 a quarter. That probably should go up. So you look at a dollar plus 30 cents a quarter, that's a 30% boost to company-wide profits.
You're talking about the earnings per share.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not financial advice.
Right. Well, the other thing that I keep noticing, I was watching some, CNBC panel talking about Tesla. Maybe it was CNBC, maybe it was some other channel. And they were saying something about how Tesla's margins are decreasing. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If you guys were listening to Zach, gross margins might go down a bit, but operating margins are still strong.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know whether these guys don't know what they're talking about or they do know what they're talking about, and they're either deliberately misrepresenting Tesla's margins, which, sorry, for people who don't know, gross margin is what they get in revenue from the car minus what it costs them to build the car. And then there's other things to run the business. So you subtract that out, you get your operating margin. And then there's a little bit more you subtract out to get net profit, which is what goes into earnings per share. But the point being, if you can keep your operating margins up, even if your gross margin falls, your net numbers are still good.
Yep.
And your earnings per shares are still good. So I feel like a lot of people are, like Zach was pretty clear about that, but a lot of people are missing that point.
And we're beginning to hear about more and more Megapack factories.
Oh, you're hearing other stories about that? What's the term, Megafactory?
Megafactories.
Did you make that up?
I did.
So you think that we're likely to see other Megapack? Like, wasn't there a report that they might be building one in Shanghai?
Yeah. And I think they could do it. Maybe they'll be forced to export them. But like if they deliver them to China, they can have someone else put their software in it if they're worried about, national security, American software in the Chinese power system. So like I think
who would be worried about that? Who would be worried about the national security, China or America?
China. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get the sense that China would be that worried about it.
Well, it's connected to your grid. We've seen some things where they're beginning to block or be fussy with CATL or BYD putting in this type of Megapack in the US. It makes sense for a factory to be in China otherwise, because you're right next to the CATL, or you're very close to it, so it doesn't have to travel as far.
It seems like we worry way too much. It's just my opinion. We worry way too much about these national security issues, and let's just focus on making better stuff. And maybe we could all learn to work together more.
Yeah,
that's my Twitter user bio is, let's cooperate. We think of the world as a zero-sum game, and what China gets, we lose, or something like that. And the reality is that the universe is an infinite sum game, and if we work together, we could all have more.
Yeah.
We stop fighting with each other, but that's getting a little bit away from the topic of the video.
Well, I believe as Tesla gets more and more successful and more important to the global economy, that they're going to be supported by more governments.
Well, I mean, if they deliver economic growth to a country, if they deliver jobs to a country, if they, I have this whole theory that the reason that China welcomed Tesla as let them set up their wholly owned factory in Shanghai, which had never been done before, is Elon was able to persuade them, hey, you want to breathe clean air, I can help clean your air.
Yeah.
And no matter how wealthy or powerful you are as a Chinese bureaucrat or political figure, your grandchildren still have to breathe dirty air.
Mm.
And if somebody can come in and credibly say, I'm going to clean up your air, you might be motivated by that. And China's not the only country like that. I think India also, there's a lot of places in the world that have unclean air, and that's a leading cause of death, effectively, in a lot of the world. And you'd probably rather your grandchildren breathe cleaner air, right? No matter how much you care about power, no matter how much you care about power, no matter how much you care about money, if your grandchildren are breathing dirty air and it's causing lung cancer or whatever, you're going to care about that.
Yeah.
And that is something that Tesla's literally, like, people talk about climate change, and I'm a little bit of I'm not a true believer in the climate change story, but I'm a true believer that coal pollutes.
Yeah.
That fossil fuels put particulate matter in the air, and that's a significant cause of, disease and death in humanity. Yeah. And if we could reduce, particulate emissions, And that's what, and solar and batteries do that. Solar and batteries have a tremendous impact on reducing air pollution.
Yeah, I think
And EVs.
I think everyone's against lung cancer, and I think we can all get behind that.
Yes.
People will figure it out over time. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, and I think, we have all this conflict in the world, but I wonder how much of the conflict is for show and how much of it is genuine. And I think Elon and the team are very good at working with other governments to say, hey, let's work together on this and pretty much stay out of, fights.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another thing, there's like, I'm sorry, we're going off on a tangent a bit, but there's this obsession people have with China's about to invade Taiwan, which, as far as I can tell, China's been about to invade Taiwan for like 50 years.
Yeah.
And they haven't done it. So I don't know why people think all of a sudden China's going to invade Taiwan. They got to shrink. China has a shrinking population. They got their own problems. Like, the whole Taiwan thing to me is just like, it's an excuse to get people riled up about stuff, but they're never going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but where's the hint?
I don't know if it comes, but if you look at right now, China's economy is struggling after going through COVID.
Yeah.
There may be a lot of businesses that went out of business and people unemployed. And we're seeing the premier of China, Xi, trying to make peace between Russia and Ukraine. They want peace. They want the world economy to be clicking along. And if they were to do something with Taiwan, that would be terrible for the global economy. So
right. Yeah, and terrible for their own economy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I get this pushback from people. I have this belief that the Boring Company, Elon's tunnel company, is ultimately going to tunnel the Bering Strait and connect Asia to North America, and maybe going along the Arctic Circle connect both to Europe and be able to ship cargo much more efficiently, much cleaner, much higher volume. And that would be a huge advantage for China. And people are like, well, that would put it subject to Putin. I'm like, Xi Jinping will take care of Putin. They'll just buy Putin off. Right? People think it's all about, evil or whatever. Like, Putin just wants power and money. And, if China's getting what they want, they'll pay Putin off to get what they want. That's my take. I think people have this idea that we impute our own motives to others. Like, we try to control the world, so we think other people are trying to control the world.
Yeah.
And I don't know that China's really trying to control the world. They're just trying to grow their economy. And they have a huge problem with their shrinking population.
Yeah.
So I almost think like the idea of countries trying to be expansionist when their populations are shrinking starts to become silly. So, all right, so we're rambling. We've gone way off course here. Is there anything else you want to close with?
No, that's good. Let's close it out. Thank you, Warren.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Check out the t-shirts. This is Critical Thinking in Latin, Discriminate Cogitandi. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please check out my other videos. Please support me on the Locals platform, The Daily Lie, on Patreon or as a YouTube channel member. Check out Bradford on Twitter, Brad S. Ferguson, right?
Yes, sir.
And please like this video, share, and subscribe. Thanks, everybody.